No. Okay. Here's where we are at right now. We have finished World War II. We have talked about the A bomb yesterday. And by the way, I really appreciate your thoughts on that. I haven't. Hello. Hello. Okay. See, the thing is with this is that people say that when I do it without the microphone, they can't hear me on the Ed puzzle.
You might have to sit over there.
I might have to sit over here, which for some reason that thing's not charging very well. You have had some shape or form of everything that we've talked about this year already, almost everything, right? You've talked about imperialism before. You've talked about industrialization before, last year in ninth grade, maybe even in like seventh grade. World War I, World War II, you've had all that stuff before. You have not had, as far as I know, the Cold War. How about Chinese Revolution? Have you heard, did you study about the Chinese Revolution last year? Do you remember studying about the Chinese Revolution last year? Okay. Chinese Revolution is today. Here's the deal with this. We could read, and you all said you didn't want to read. So the only other way for me to get this to you is for me to talk to you, right? Because there's only like so many ways that we can get information in our head. And there's so much information here for this that I can't like do something funsy with it, like slang, stories, and drawings, although we might draw. Okay, so I'm just going to do the best I can. Okay, this is the Cold War. Does anybody know what the Cold War was? Yay! I get to actually teach them something today.
I guess why do you think it's cold for? What's about Russia? There you go. Nice start.
Russia, Soviet Union, USSR, all the same thing.
Now, have you guys ever seen Rocky IV? No. Evan Drago. There you go. That's during the Cold War.
If he dies, he dies.
You guys never seen Rocky IV? It's on Netflix. The only reason I say it now, it's on Netflix. It's like all the Rockies are on there now. So yeah, that was definitely during the Cold War.
Yeah, Russia versus the United States. That was a bad Russian impersonation, right? Everything that I need to teach you about the Cold War's beginnings happens under Harry Truman. He's the next president, and so that's why I call this the Truman administration. Now, if you look at this, do you see this? This. He was the second president to have approval ratings. By the way, do you know what President Biden's approval rating is about right now? 40%, 41. Do you know what Donald Trump's was hovering at most of his career, most of his 4 years in office? 40. Barack Obama's 40. That means more than half of the country disapproved of his job, of their jobs. George W. Bush, about 40. Right, except at the very beginning after 9/11. So all these presidents that you have been alive during, actually, were they alive during Bush, second Bush?
What year are you guys born? What year?
07.
What? 07.
07. Yeah, tail end of Bush. Okay. They have all been hovering around here, around this mark. That's not good. That means that less than half of the country approves of what you're doing. Look at where Truman starts. 89 to 90% approval rating. And then woo. And then woo. It's a literal roller coaster. And then at the end of his administration, right? I want to try to explain why that happened while I'm trying to also teach you about the Cold War. Now, dropping the atomic bomb. What's the name of the atomic bomb that was dropped? The first one? Little Boy. Very good. What was the date? Mr. Beavers, you said we won't have to remember dates. You're right. This is not a test question, but do you remember? August 6th. Very good. 1945. Do you remember the name of the pilot? The Enola Gay was the name of the plane. What was it? I heard a T. Paul Tibbets, and you gave me the name of the plane, Enola Gay, named after who? His mom. Then there's the Nagasaki bomb. Do you remember the name of the Fat Man? Do you remember the date? Very good. 9th. Close. It wasn't until then, finally, that Japan surrendered. Why am I telling you this now? I told you this yesterday and the day before, right? I'm telling you this now because this is one of the first things that Truman does. How does it affect his popularity? We're going to find out in just a second. Here's a new term: superpower. The end of course exam curriculum uses this word to mean your country is big and powerful, but it also has nuclear weapons. From 1945 to 1949, we were the only superpower. There was no other country in the world that had nuclear weapons yet. How do you think dropping the bomb and ending the war affected Truman's presidency, his popularity? It actually went up. The country approved of how he handled the transition to be president and of the bomb and ending the war. Now, that's as high as it got. There's only been 2 presidents get this high. George H.W. Bush. That was the first Gulf War. His son, George W. Bush, was pretty high right after 9/11, but then dropped pretty soon. And then, right? Why? There's Hiroshima after the devastation. There's the Enola Gay. Who's this?
Gay.
It sure does. Here is the radiation scars. Shouldn't be laughing while I'm saying this. For the people that survived the Hiroshima bomb, you can see they're maimed for life. Now, these next few things I'd want to breeze over real quick, but you've got to know about them, and they're happening under Truman. Do you remember, did we ever join the League of Nations? Nope. But we did join the United Nations. The UN was created after World War II. It's the new international peacekeeping organization. It's still around. Has it worked? How many world wars have there been since World War II? None. So is it working? Kind of. I mean, it's not great, but it's not terrible. Here's what happened. And FDR, this is FDR's brainchild. Him and Churchill dreamed this up, but it was implemented under Truman. It came about under Truman. The UN is kind of like a world parliament. The General Assembly is the world parliament. Every country around the world, no matter how big or small, gets to send a representative, and each country gets a vote in the General Assembly. And then there's the highly selective, more powerful group of countries called the UN Security Council. And these 11 countries are the countries that really get to determine what the UN does. They get to determine if the UN sends troops somewhere. They get to determine if the UN puts a trade embargo on somebody. Notice here, 5 permanent members. Those 5 permanent members, Great Britain, Russia, Soviet Union, France, China, and the US, were the 5 major allies. Do you remember why we did not join the League of Nations? Yes. For the record, that was Carter Adams. We wanted to be independent. If we join the League of Nations, we have to do what they tell us to do. We have to fight the wars they tell us to fight. We have to put trade sanctions on countries that they tell us to. We didn't join because of that. So why did we join the UN? Because we get a veto. Those 5 permanent members, Great Britain, Russia, France, China, US, gets to have a veto. If the UN votes, if 199 countries around the world vote to go to war against Russia, the United States could say no, just one, and we don't do it because the U.S. has a permanent veto. Now, here's the other problem. So does Great Britain, so does Russia, so does France, so does China. So why haven't we declared war on Russia yet? The UN, the whole world. Why not declare war on Russia as they're trying to take Ukraine? Yeah, because Russia can veto it too. Remember the League of Nations. Everybody good here? Okay. The UN has a flag, and it looks like that. It's the world up, kind of from the top down. The United States has the headquarters of the UN in New York City. All the countries of the world meet there. In fact, the United States gives the most money to the UN. The next thing that you need to know that happened right after World War II was an establishment for a homeland for the Jewish people. We call that country Israel. Because of Hitler's Holocaust, there had been so many people, Jewish people, that were running away, trying to find a place of safety, didn't have a home. And so the Allies gave them a piece of land in a place called Palestine, in a part of the world where the old Ottoman Empire used to be. And if you went to Sunday school as a kid, you would know this as the Holy Land, or open up the back of the Bible and all the maps that are there. It's that part of the world. It's in the Middle East. If you had survived the Holocaust as a Jew, you almost certainly would have went to Israel because it's a place for you to be safe. Here's the problem. Israel was created in the middle of a lot of countries that had a different religion than them. Does anybody know what religion dominates the Middle East? Thought I heard it. Yeah, they are Muslim. They are Islamic people. They did not want these Jewish people to have a country made out of nowhere in the middle of Muslim territory. And so almost immediately, its Muslim neighbors, led by Egypt, attacked Israel, and Israel beat them. Their military, Israel's military, was brand spanking new. The Soviet Union was giving supplies to Egypt, and Israel still won. There were a lot of religious people, and you can take this with a grain of salt because I'm not even sure if I believe this, but there's a lot of religious people that said, oh, see, the Bible said it was going to happen, and now it's happening, and that means the end of the world is coming soon, and if you don't support Israel, then you are going to be taken advantage of by the Antichrist, and all sorts of stuff like that. So there's a lot of people today in our country who say it's our national and our religious duty to support Israel. I'm not saying you have to believe that one way or another. Okay, Mediterranean Sea over here. There had been some Jewish settlements in this area of the world before the war. After the war is over, all of this orange land is given to the Jews to form Israel. And then when they won their battle against Egypt and the rest, they took over all of this, the orange and the yellow. Trivia time. This is the flag of Israel. What is this symbol in the middle of the flag? Star of David. Who is David? He was a Jewish king way back 3,000 years ago, right? Now, you may not know that David was a Jewish king, but you might know how Hitler used this. Anybody? It was called the Nuremberg Laws. It stripped all Jews of their citizenship and made them second-class citizens. And you can't tell a Jewish person, from a distance. It's not like they have a big mark on their head that says, I'm this ethnicity. And so Hitler said, I'm going to put it right there so we can tell from a distance who you are, and we know we can go over there and bully you. Speaking of Nuremberg, this is one of the few times when the Soviet Union and the U.S. cooperated on something. The Nuremberg trials put the Nazi war criminals on trial. Many of them were sentenced to death for their part in the Holocaust. for war crimes, and many of them, instead of facing execution, committed suicide in their jail cell. To me, I call that cowardice, right? There were many Nazi leaders who escaped. Does anybody know where they went? They escaped to Argentina, South American country. Even today, you will find blonde-haired, blue-eyed people in a Hispanic culture because they're descended from those Germans. And if you want to know something really cool, there were Jewish Nazi hunters that went around in the 40s and 50s and 60s trying to find those living escaped Nazis. Look it up. Good stuff.
One of them was founded in Ohio, right? They found it years
Yeah.
later in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah. They went all over the place, a lot of them to Argentina. Here is Hermann Göring, Hitler's second in command. On trial, he was sentenced to death. He committed suicide in his jail cell. All right, you ready to draw? Let's draw. You see this? Let's go back to the front. See that area right there? We have a little bit of an area right there that we can do some doodling. Can we do that? Because I know I'm talking a lot, and I want to make sure that you all are happy. Let's draw. Let's dim the lights to draw. Don't go to sleep. Can you draw a big circle, and we'll call that Germany? If you know what Germany looks like, you can try to draw Germany. Joseph Stalin, the USSR, by the way, is over here. The Soviet Union is over here on this side. Western Europe is on this side. Here's Germany right in the middle. I'll just put a G right here. Joseph Stalin thought, remembered, World War I, Germany attacked Russia. World War II, Germany attacked Russia. We don't want Russia or Germany to be unified because they'll probably do it again. So let's divide it up. And so this is what happened. The Allies went whoosh, and this was dominated by the Russians. Can you draw that? Whoosh. Britain, France, USA. That's not exactly right, but it's close enough. Why would you want to divide Germany up into 4 different parts? Why did Germany feel like they could attack in World War II? Hadn't they lost World War One? Not really, right? You might remember there was no Allied soldier that actually set foot on German soil. We've got to make sure that Germany feels like they've lost. And so we're going to pound them into the dirt, right? They also did the same. Can you draw this? That little circle is the city of Berlin. That little city right there. They did the same thing to the capital city of Germany, Berlin. Russia had that. US, France, and Britain had that. You can draw it bigger if you want. It's fine. It does not have to be to scale, obviously. You've always known Germany as one Germany. When I was growing up, and when Coach Hinton was growing up, Coach Hinton, I'm 43. You're
45.
okay. We're about the same age.
This is what I like to say. You guys know about the Olympics, right? When we were growing up, the Olympics would come around. There would be a West Germany team and an East Germany team. They would compete against each other. And I found it really strange when they finally got to consolidate and become one German team. The one that I was always thought of, that we always thought of like kind of the bad guys, who always got in trouble for like doping and taking all the steroids and stuff, were the East Germans controlled by Russia.
Yep.
The other ones were, controlled by, I guess, the United States and all the other allied countries, but they were considered to be more of the good guys, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
so the Germans on the eastern side, they were they were better. They won a lot of events. Especially some of the females won a lot of events, the lifting and gymnastics, all that kind of stuff. They were really good, but they were also doing it in the standard there during that time illegally.
Yeah. The East German girls very strong, very strapping. Is that better? No, not really. Okay. So when the United States and France and Britain leaves, they occupy West Germany for a little bit. When they leave, those three areas join together to become West Germany because Britain, the United States, and France are democracies. West Germany became democracy. When the USSR left, what do you think East Germany became? Communist. And that's how we grew up with the map saying West Germany, East Germany. We knew that West Germany was the good guys, East Germany was the bad guys. Are you okay with the drawing? Everybody good? Okay. Let me erase all this. You shouldn't erase all this. Can you go back to that second or to the back of the first page? So, Stalin, afraid of another invasion, divide up Germany into four occupation zones. There were American soldiers that after we won the war, they stayed in Germany to be like basically policemen. West Germany occupied by three democracies. East Germany occupied by the Soviet Union, or you can call them the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Berlin divided along the same lines, the capital city, Berlin. Now, will you check your drawing? Does it look like that?
Yes.
There you go. Good job. And I want you to notice right here, this is going to play a part in tomorrow. This part of Berlin right here that I'm circling, West Berlin, it was democratic too because it had been occupied by the Americans, the French, and the British. West Berlin was a island of democracy in this ocean of communism. That's going to play a big part in just a few minutes. Okay. All right. Now, it's time for a commercial break. Are you ready for a commercial break? There is a movie coming out in the summer, and I'm going to show you a trailer for it. And it's related to what we've been talking about. You ready? What do you think this movie's about? Top Gun. Robert got it. Do you know who Christopher Nolan is? A dope producer? He does not produce dope. Well, not that I know of. You mean his movies slap? They hit different. Okay. He did the Dark Knight trilogy, Batman with who played Bruce Wayne? Christian Bale. He did Interstellar. He's done a ton of movies that are awesome. That is like Christmas in July for history teachers. I can't wait. How many of you are going to go out and buy advanced tickets right now? Hey, there you go. There you go. All right, let's plow through. All of that I just told you, that is happening on Truman's watch. And I wouldn't say that Truman gets a lot of credit for it. It's just something that we need to know. And a lot of those were like the brainchild of FDR, and Truman kind of put them into practice, right? But some of those are showing that the U.S. and the Soviet Union are actually working together to try to accomplish some things. But that working together relationship doesn't last long. Almost immediately, the Cold War starts, and the Cold War means cold. There's no bombs going off. There's no heat of battle. The United States and the Soviet Union never put troops on the same battlefield to fight each other. Never. But there was always the threat. Ask your grandparents. Ask them about what it was like to have to do duck and cover drills during the middle of school. Do you know what a duck and cover drill was? I'll show you what a duck and cover drill was. They would get on the announcements, and you know how you do fire drills and tornado drills and lockdown drills. They did practice runs for the nuclear bomb. And this is what you had to do in order to help keep you safe during the atomic bomb. Duck and cover. And this is going to keep you safe from the nukes, the atomic bomb. Ask him about it. Ask him about Sputnik going across the sky and being worried about the Russians blowing us up anytime that they wanted to, right? This was a time of fear.
In Everett's old building, it had a fallout. I think it had an old room that was like a fallout shelter.
Yep. If you look on Everett's middle school building, there's like a little sign that has like a nuclear like symbol, and it says fallout shelter on it, right? So no actual war, but there was always the threat. It was a very tense relationship for basically your grandparents, their adult lives, from childhood to the time they were 50 or something like that, depending on, of course, on how old your grandparents are. Now, this is not Truman. This is John F. Kennedy, arm wrestling Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, with John F. Kennedy's finger on the nuke button, right? They're both sitting on H bombs, and hydrogen bombs, by the way, had the destructive power of 400 Hiroshima bombs because they use a different type of nuclear power. But even though that's not Truman up there, and we're talking about Truman, that's what it was like. It was like an arm wrestling match for the world, basically. Winston Churchill helps kick off the Cold War because he's no longer Prime Minister of England, but he decides that he still has the ability to make an impression on people because he's Winston Churchill, right? And so he goes to Missouri, which is Truman's home state, and he makes a speech called the Iron Curtain speech, where he says, "An iron curtain has fallen across Europe, and on one side are the democracies and the free nations of the world, and on the other side are the nations that are enslaved by the communists. And there is a conflict coming between these two sides." He predicts it, and he wasn't wrong. Do you see? Hold on. Hello? I sure did. No. Mm-mm. Yeah, no, I didn't. Yep. Bye. See this? Well, sorry, people that are listening to this. Here. See that right there? The red countries on this side are the communist countries. Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and the Soviet Union. These are the places that the Soviets took from the Nazis after World War II, and then the Soviets didn't really give them back up. These are the democracies, all these blue countries. And there's this iron curtain right there. This is Truman's approval rating. You saw that how he handled things early seemed to be doing really well. The economy kind of took a dip. A lot of the women wanted their husbands to come home. They had something called the baby booty barrage. You see, before the men went off to war, they got married to their sweethearts. There were a lot of kids that were the result of that, right? There were little kids at home waiting that really hadn't really seen their dads. And so the moms sent millions of moms, well, hundreds of thousands of moms sent little baby socks to the White House saying, "My daddy wants me to come home," kind of thing, right? That his popularity goes down. Now, this is, I would almost star this word containment. This is an end of course exam term. You need to know this term. We get the word containment from a long telegram that was written by a guy named George Kennan. And when I say long telegram, that means he did dots and dashes for 1,000 pages. Could you imagine typing some of you type like this, right? 1, 2 fingers. Could you imagine doing that for 1,000 pages, right? Well, what did that long telegram say? That the policy of the Truman administration should be to contain communism. Now, let's do. Sorry, people who are listening, you can't see this demonstration. Can I take on you? You put yourself over there. Would you be willing? Can you give me your consent? Okay. Would you all agree that now the cell phone is contained? Can the cell phone get out? Can I do this with the cell phone? Will that hurt your cell phone? I hope not, right? The cell phone can't get out. Right? It's contained, and that's what we were hoping that would happen to communism. Now, am I destroying the cell phone while it's inside here? We're not going to destroy communism, but we're going to keep it inside its borders. It's not going to get out of here. That's the goal. I'll stop messing with your cell phone. But if you have that policy and then, whoop, communism gets out, like just happened there with the cell phone, then that means that something bad happened. We'll get to that, right? Containing communism. This is a key term. This is what is going to be our policy for the next 50 years. Almost. Stop the spread of communism. It kind of looked like this. The U.S. wants to use Japan and China and Pakistan and Israel and Western Europe and us to keep the Soviet bear right there. But the Soviets want to spread their influence all around the world, and one of those two is going to win. It can't be both. Truman Doctrine, another end of course exam term. If you want to put a star beside it, please do. What is the Truman Doctrine? Well, first, Britain had helped liberate Greece from the Nazis. The country of Greece had been under the Nazis. Britain helped liberate them. Britain eventually said, we can't stay here and keep helping these people. It's costing too much money. And so Britain said they're going to leave. Here's the problem. There were communists wanting to take over Greece. Thank you. So Truman said, we don't want those communists to take over Greece. So he asked Congress for $400 million, which back then was a lot of money, to be sent to both Greece and to Turkey so that these two countries would not fall to communism. We will not send troops, but we will send military supplies and food and loans to the people fighting the communists. That policy became known as the Truman Doctrine. The Truman Doctrine says we will help support people fighting against dictators. And that has been our policy ever since. The Truman Doctrine says keep resisting communist takeover short of involvement of U.S. forces. We will not send our troops, but we will do everything else to help. It's kind of like what we're doing right now for Ukraine. We're sending everything but troops to keep Russia from spreading its influence. The same back then, except they were communists back then. Truman Doctrine, help keep people free. This next one, Marshall Plan, is another end of course exam term if you want to star it. I know I'm giving you a lot of those. There's just a lot in this. That's why I'm lecturing. Countries in Western Europe had been destroyed after World War II, during World War II. What are we going to do with all of this destruction? How are we going to rebuild? We have no money to rebuild. Well, the communists had the answer. We'll take over the country. We'll take over France. We'll take over Italy. And we'll rebuild. What if the U.S. gave money to France and Italy and Britain and all of our allies, kept them from going communist, and then those democracies of the West could be a counterbalance to Soviet expansion, meaning they could keep the Soviets from gaining territory? And what if we gave them so much money that they are indebted to us forever? Maybe they'll look favorably on us. They'll want to be our allies. They'll not want to be the Soviets' allies. And so because of that, Harry Truman and his Secretary of State, George Marshall, pumped $12 billion into Western Europe to rebuild Western Europe, to keep those countries from going communist. Did it work? Look at all that money we gave France. They did not go communist. It worked. Look at all that money we gave Italy. They did not go communist. It worked. Greece did not go communist. Great Britain gave them a lot of money. We helped rebuild West Germany. We helped rebuild the former Nazi country. They didn't go communist. It worked. Notice who we're not giving money to. Any of these places that were dominated by the Soviet Union. All of these places that we gave money to stayed democratic. Can you write these down real quick? This is an end of course exam term. You'll need to know this. NATO is still around today. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. North Atlantic. The US and Canada over here on this side of the Atlantic. On the other side of the Atlantic, all of the Western democracies. This is a mutual alliance agreement. All of these countries, if the Soviet Union attacks West Germany, then all of these countries, including the US, go to fight for West Germany. An attack on one is an attack on all. Will you please take those notes and leave them on your desk? I would like to finish this up tomorrow. I'll keep those for you. Make sure your name's on the front, please. Thank you for cooperating while this is being recorded. I might have to record some tomorrow too.